Something that troubles me about modern honesty is that the more honest you are, the less room you have to change. And not because people don't believe in growth, but because the internet has perfect memory. And perfect memory makes growth look like lying. Here's what I mean. Someone goes to therapy and talks about their marriage. Really talks. Gets vulnerable about feeling trapped and feeling distant. And 6 months later, things are better. They work through it. The marriage is in a different place. But in an argument, the partner brings up the therapy session. Maybe not maliciously, just as evidence. You said you felt trapped, remember? You said that. And now they're stuck because they did say that. It was true when they said it. But it's not the whole truth anymore. And honesty doesn't create understanding. It created a file. This is happening everywhere now. Like, not even just in relationships. Someone applies for a job and the hiring manager finds their tweet from 2019. It may not be hateful. It may not be scandalous. Just tweets where they were figuring something out. Processing a political opinion they don't hold no more. The question isn't have they grown. The question is, do we want to deal with this? Someone posts about struggling with their body or with food, with the gap between who they are and who they trying to become. And years later, when they're in a better place, someone screenshots it just to ask, hey, is this real or is this a rebrand? The pattern is the same every time. Someone is honest. Honesty gets stored, and then storage becomes who they are. Permanently. March 2022. The Oscars. Will Smith walks on stage and booms Chris Rock. Within minutes, the internet wasn't asking why did he do that. They were asking, what did Jada say at that table? Not what happened that night. What did she say at that red table? As if a conversation from 2020 was the explanation for what happened in 2022. A red table talk was supposed to be about transparency, about being open, but it didn't create understanding. It created a reference point. And once you become a reference point, the thing you said stops being yours. Kai Cenat talked about trying to change, about wanting to be different. And the response wasn't curiosity. It was auditing. Is this real? What's the angle? Someone in this chat once said, if you don't want your people watching, don't stream it. Which sounds reasonable, but that's not what's happening. Growth under surveillance doesn't look like growth. It looks like performance. And performance gets graded. So people adapt. They stop being honest in full sentences. They speak in disclaimers. They leave room to walk things back. And not because they're fake, but because they've learned what happens when the file gets built too early. You see it everywhere now. I'm working on myself instead of I'm a mess right now. We're in different places instead of I don't think it's working. I'm exploring new perspectives instead of I was wrong. Therapy speak, corporate speak, language designed to sound vulnerable without actually being specific. Because specificity is what gets stored. Specificity is what becomes the file. And once you understand that, you realize vagueness isn't weakness. Vagueness is protection. The culture asked for transparency and then punished it. So people found a third option. They performed transparency without providing material. They're honest, adjacent, vulnerable, coded, real enough to seem authentic, but vague enough to stay safe. And this doesn't just change how people talk publicly, it changes how people talk privately. In therapy and arguments and late night conversations with people you trust, you start running your honesty through a filter. Could this be used against me later? Could this become the thing someone points to when they need to explain why I am the way I am? And if the answer is yes, then you soften it. You make it vague, or you make it deniable. And possibly not because you don't trust the person you're talking to, but you just don't trust the system that might store it. And it didn't used to be like this. Before, when someone said something publicly, it could fade. Memories were unreliable. People forgot, misremembered. Time smoothed things over. Someone could change between appearances and come back different. And people would adjust. Because they didn't have the tools to remember perfectly. Now the tools exist and they don't forget. Jada's table isn't a memory. It's a video. Timestamp. Searchable. Clippable. Old tweets aren't moments, they're records. A conversation in therapy isn't just between you and your therapist, it's something your partner might quote back to you years later as proof of who you were in that moment. And something becomes a record. It stops being confession. It becomes a contract, an admission, a thing that can be held back against you, and not even legally, but in a worse way, socially. You gave us this. You showed us this. And you can't take it back now. The promise of modern transparency was that if people were honest, if they opened up, if they shared the unfinished parts of themselves, we would witness it and understand it and honor it. But that's not what happened. We didn't witness it. We stored it. And in storage, in a system that never forgets, it doesn't create connection. It creates evidence without context. And this is why people have stopped being honest. Because they've learned what honesty costs in a world that never forgets. You can't just be different. You have to prove you've earned the right to be different. Show your work, provide documentation. And even then, there's skepticism because the file is still there. The old version. The thing you said when you was trying to be real. Jada sat at that table because she believed honesty would create understanding. Maybe some people got it, but the system didn't care about understanding. The system cared about storage. It took the honesty, cataloged it, and turned it into a reference point. And then the reference point didn't dissolve judgment, it fed it. It became her joke now. And then the joke became who she was. So now we're here. In a world where transparency is encouraged, but unfinished honesty is punished. Where vulnerability is valued, but specificity is dangerous. Where growth is celebrated, but inconsistency looks like lying. People are choosing silence over honesty. Because they're afraid of being frozen in a moment that was never supposed to be permanent. They're choosing ambiguity over clarity. Because clarity becomes evidence. They're choosing to stay vague about who they are and what they want. And not because they don't know, but because knowing and saying it means it can never be unsaid. The question isn't whether people should be transparent. The question is what happens when transparency becomes searchable. When vulnerability becomes reference material. When growth becomes something that has to be justified to an audience that's already built the file on who you are. The file doesn't update. It doesn't adjust new information. It doesn't account for the possibility that people are more than the thing they said when they were trying to be honest. It just sits there, permanent, archived, waiting for the next time someone needs to explain you. We've built a culture that says, tell us who you are. And then once someone does, it says, now stay that way. Because the file doesn't adjust. The moment doesn't fade. It just sits there, tagged, searchable, permanent. And once you understand that, you realize why people stop being honest. Not because they don't want to be, but because they haven't learned what honesty costs in a world that never forgets. Emotional intelligence so you don't move emotionally.
I don't mean to hurt you. baby.